The Voice of the Silence by H.P. Blavatsky, Chapter 2, 72. And if he falls, e'en then he does not fall in vain. The enemies he slew in the last battle will not return to life in the next birth that will be his. If thou wouldst nirvana reach or cast the prize away, let not the fruit of action and inaction be thy motive. Thou of dauntless heart, know that the Bodhisattva who liberation changes for renunciation to don the miseries of secret life is called thrice honored. O thou candidate for woe throughout the cycles! The path is one disciple, yet in the end twofold. Marked are its stages by 4 and 7 portals. At one end bliss immediate, at the other bliss deferred. Both are of merit. The reward, the choice is thine. The one becomes the two, the open and the secret. The first one leadeth to the goal, the second to self-immolation. When to permanent is sacrificed the mutable, the prize is thine, the drop returneth whence it came. The open path leads to the changeless change. Nirvana, the glorious state of absoluteness, the bliss past human thought. Thus, the first path is liberation, but path the second is renunciation, and therefore called the path of woe. That secret path leads the Arhan to mental woe unspeakable, woe for the living dead, and hopeless pity for the men of karmic sorrow. The fruit of karma sages dare not still, for it is written, teach to eschew all causes, the ripple of effect. As the great tidal wave, thou shalt let run its course. The open way no sooner hast thou reached its goal, will lead thee to reject the bodhisattvic body, and make thee enter the thrice glorious state of Dharmakaya, which is oblivious to the world and men forever. The secret way leads to parinirvanic bliss, but the close of kalpas without number, nirvanas gained and lost from boundless pity and compassion for the world of deluded mortals. But it is said the last shall be the greatest. Samyak Sambuddha, the teacher of perfection, gave up his self for the salvation of the world by stopping at the threshold of nirvana, the pure state. Thou hast the knowledge now concerning the two ways. Thy time will come for a choice. O thou of eager soul, when thou hast reached the end and passed the 7 portals, thy mind is clear. No more art thou entangled in delusive thoughts, for thou hast learned all. Unveiled stands truth, and looks thee sternly in the face. She says, sweet are the fruits of rest and liberation for the sake of self, but sweeter still the fruits of long and bitter duty, renunciation for the sake of others, of suffering fellow men. He who becomes Pratyeka Buddha makes his obeisance but to himself. The Bodhisattva who has won the battle, who holds the prize within his palms, yet says in his divine compassion, for others' sake this great reward I yield, accomplishes the greater renunciation. A savior of the world is he. Behold the goal of bliss, the long path of woe are at the furthest end. Thou canst choose either, O aspirant to sorrow through the coming cycles. Om Vajrapani Hum. And fragments 3 is the 7 portals. And before we get into that, let us remember the left-hand path is not just exalting your ego and divinizing the self that you sort of just assume yourself to be, some sort of rebel or whatever the deal is. Sexually becoming beyond contrivance. And you may, just like in the right-hand path, have to annihilate the self that you thought you were. Or at least enough parts of it that you're not recognizable as such anymore. Well, I mean, you're in whatever body you are, but you know what I mean. Upadhyaya. The choice is made. I thirst for wisdom. Now hast thou rent the veil before the secret path and taught the greater Yana. Thy servant here is ready for thy guidance. 'Tis well, Sravaka, I prepare myself, for thou wilt have to travel on alone. The teacher can but point the way. The path is one for all. The means to reach the goal must vary within the pilgrims. Which wilt thou choose, O thou of dauntless heart? The Samtan of eye doctrine, fourfold dhyana, are thread thy way through paramitas, 6 in number, noble gates of virtue leading to Bodhi and to prajna, 7th step of wisdom. The rugged path of fourfold dhyana winds on uphill. Thrice great is he who climbs the lofty top. The paramita heights are crossed by a still steeper path. Thou hast to fight thy way through portals, 7 straight strongholds, held by cruel crafty powers, passions incarnate. Be of good cheer, disciple, bear in mind the golden rule. Once thou hast passed the gate, Srutapati, he who the stream hath entered. Once thy foot hath pressed the bed of the nirvanic stream in this or any future life, thou hast but 7 other births before thee, O thou of adamantine will. Look on, what seest thou before thine eyes, O aspirant? The godlike wisdom. The cloak of darkness is upon the deep of matter. Within its folds I struggle. Beneath my gaze it deepens. Lord, it is dispelled beneath the waving of thy hand. A shadow moveth, creeping. Hike the stretching serpent coils. It grows, swells out, and disappears in darkness. It is the shadow of thyself outside the path, cast on the darkness of thy sins. Yea, Lord, I see the path, its foot in mire, its summit lost in glorious light, nirvanic. And now I see the ever-narrowing portals on the hard and thorny way to Knaichna. Thou seest well anew these portals head the aspirant across the waters, on to the other shore. Each portal hath a golden key that openeth its gate. These keys are Dana, the key of charity, and Hove immortal. Sheila, the key of harmony, in word and act, the key that counterbalances the cause and the effect, and leaves no further room for karmic action. Kshanti, patience sweet, that naught can ruffle. Vairagya, indifference to pleasure and to pain, illusion conquered, truth alone perceived. Virya, the dauntless energy that fights its way to the supernal truth, out of the mire of lies terrestrial. Dhyana, whose golden gate once open heads the Narjul toward the realm of Sat Eternal, at its ceaseless contemplation. Prajna, the key which makes of a man a god, creating him a bodhisattva, son of Dhyanis. Such, to the portals, are the golden keys. Before thou canst approach the last, O weaver of thy freedom, thou hast to master these paramitas of perfection, the virtues transcendental, 6 and 10 in number, along the weary path. For, O disciple, before thou wert made to fit to meet thy teacher face to face, thy master light to light, what wert thou told? Before thou canst approach the foremost gate, thou hast to learn to part thy body from thy mind, to dissipate the shadow, and to live in the eternal. For this thou hast to live and breathe in all, as all that thou perceivest breathes in thee, to feel thyself abiding in all things in self. Thou shalt not let thy senses make a playground of thy mind. Thou shalt not separate thy being from being and the rest, but merge the ocean in the deep, the drop within the ocean. So shalt thou be in full accord with all that lives, bear love to men as though they were thy brother pupils, disciples of one teacher, the sons of one sweet mother. Of teachers there are many, the master soul is one. Alaya, the universal soul, live in that master as its ray in thee, live in thy fellows as they live in it. Before thou standest on the threshold of the path, before thou crossest the foremost gate, thou hast to merge the two into the one, and sacrifice the personal to the self-impersonal, and thus destroy the path between the two. Anta Karana, thou hast to be prepared to answer Dharma, the stern law whose voice will ask thee first at thy initial step. Hast thou compiled with the rules, O thou of lofty hopes? Hast thou attuned thy heart and mind to the great mind and heart of all mankind? For as the sacred river's roaring voice, whereby all nature's sounds are echoed back, so must the heart of him who in the stream would enter thrill in response to every sigh and thought of all that lives and breathes. Disciples may be likened to the strings of the soul echoing Vina, mankind unto its sounding board, the hand that sweeps it to the tuneful breath of the great world soul, the string that fails to answer neath the master's touch, in dulcet harmony with awe the others breaks and is cast away. So the collective minds of Lenu Sharavakas, they have to be attuned to the Upadhyaya's mind, one with the oversoul, or break away. Thus do the brothers of the shadow, the murderers of their soul, the dread Dad Dugpa clan. Hast thou attuned thy being to humanity's great pain, O candidate for height? Thou hast, thou mayest enter. Yet ere thou settest foot upon the dreary path of sorrow, 'tis well thou shouldest first learn the pitfalls on thy way. Armored with the key of charity, of love and tender mercy, thou art secure before the gate of Dana, the gate that standeth at the entrance of the path. Behold, O happy pilgrim, the portal that faceth thee is high and wide, seems easy of access, the road that heads therethrough is straight and smooth and green. 'Tis hike a sunny glade in the dark forest depths, a spot on earth mirrored from Amitabha's paradise. There are nightingales of hope and birds of radiant plumage sing perched in green bowers, chanting success to fearless pilgrims. They sing Bodhisattva's virtues 5, the fivefold source of Bodhi power, and of the 7 steps in knowledge. Pass on, for thou hast brought the key, thou art secure. And the second gate, the way is verdant too, but it is deep and winds uphill, yea, to its rocky top. Grey mists well overhang its rough and stony height, and be dark beyond. As on he goes, the song of hope soundeth more feeble in the pilgrim's heart. The thrill of doubt is now upon him, his step less steady grows. Beware of this, O candidate, beware of fear that spreadeth like the black and soundless wings of midnight bat, between the moonlight of thy soul and thy great goal that loometh in the distance far away. Fear, O disciple, kills the will and stays all action. If lacking in the Shila virtue, the pilgrim trips, and karmic pebbles bruise his feet along the rocky path. Be sure of foot, O candidate, in Kshanti's essence bathe thy soul, for now thou dost approach the portal of that name, the gate of fortitude and patience. Close not thine eyes, nor lose thy sight of Dorje, the Svastika. Mara's arrows ever smite the man who has not reached Vairagya. Beware of trembling neath the breath of fear, The key of Kshanti rusty grows. The rusty key refuseth to unlock. The more thou dost advance, the more thy feet pitfalls will meet. The path that leadeth on is lighted by one fire, the light of daring burning in the heart. The more one dares, the more he shall obtain. The more he fears, the more that light shall pale, and that alone can guide. For as the lingering sunbeam that on the top of some tall mountain shines is followed by black night, when out it fades, so is heart light. When out it goes, a dark and threatening shade will fall from thine own heart upon the path, and root thy feet in terror to the spot. Beware, O disciple, of that lethal shade. No light that shines from spirit can dispel the darkness of the nether soul, unless all selfish thought has fled therefrom, and that the pilgrim saith, I have renounced this passing frame, I have destroyed the cause the shadows cast can, as effects no longer be. For now the last great fight, the final war between the higher and lower self, hath taken place. Behold, the very battlefield is now engulfed in the great war, and is no more. But once that thou hast passed the gate of Kshanti, step the third is taken, thy body is thy slave. Now for the fourth prepare the portal of temptations, which do ensnare the inner man. Ere thou canst near that goal, before thine head is lifted to upraise the fourth gate's latch, thou must have mustered all the mental changes in thyself, and slain the army of the thought sensations that subtle and insidious creep unasked within the soul's bright shrine. If thou wouldst not be slain by them, then must thou harmless make thy own creations, the children of thy thoughts unseen, impalpable, that swarm round humankind, the progeny and heirs to man and his terrestrial spoils, within the well of thine own heart, and answer, knowest thou of self the powers, O thou perceiver of external shadows? If thou dost not, then art thou lost.